Doctrine and Devotion, a podcast exploring Christian faith and practice from a Reformed Baptist perspective. My name is Joe Thorne. I'm the lead pastor of Redeemer Fellowship in St. Charles, Illinois.
And I'm Jimmy Fowler, elder candidate at Redeemer Fellowship.
But
I'm all done.
you got all your stuff
All
done.
my stuff is done. It's turned in.
No, wait, hang on.
It's turned in.
You got the books.
It's it. Yep.
You got the paper, the big theological paper.
Yeah, that I wasn't supposed to do, but continue.
No, you were supposed to do that.
I was
Brian
not
didn't know what he was
supposed to do it.
talking about.
Continue.
I tell you what you have to do. You do what I tell you to do when I tell you to do it. And you got your calling, paid gifts.
giftings.
You got,
Yeah.
everything's in.
All's in.
So now I think it's April 8th is your oral exam.
Yep.
So
April 8th.
is this going to be out by then? You have to look it up. I don't know.
This will be out.
All right, so
This will be out by then.
So you've already had your oral exam, and you're probably going to have to take it 2 or 3 more times, and then
4 times.
Then, because we do it in English, we do it in Latin,
Yep.
then we do it in
Greek.
and
Yeah.
so, and if we do it in Spanglish for Jimmy too.
That's the only way I could pass.
Yeah, because he doesn't speak actual Spanish.
No. I make it up as I go. Much like my theology.
So you just came back from a magic-filled weekend.
All right, stop.
What?
Stop.
You had a magic-filled? Oh, you had a magic overnight? I don't know. Jimmy
I had a
and
magic sleepover.
Yeah, Jimmy and his wife went. Where'd you go? You went to Chicago.
We went downtown.
And you went and saw a magic
so we
show.
thought we just
You
thought
saw
my brother was
magic.
like, hey, we want to watch the kids for a couple hours
Dustin?
just to hang out. Yeah, Dustin, the
Dirte.
Dirte. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Then it turned into, hey, their cousin from Dustin's wife's side. My sister's
cares.
side. Anyway, stop it. So he was going to sleep over. So they said, hey, they'll have the kids sleep over. And then I said, bam, let's just spend the night downtown.
That
So
sounds
we're out.
good. That sounds good.
Yeah.
But then you went to a
We went to
magic
a magic show and an illusionist, sleight of hand,
You could have gone to see a musical or a play. That'd have been cool.
No, I went and looked. I couldn't get into Hamilton. I wanted to do Hamilton. Couldn't get in.
Didn't you already do that?
No, I'm waiting for Steve and I are going.
Okay, that's right.
Steve.
I'm not interested. And even if I was, I probably wouldn't get invited. So
No, we weren't going to invite you.
you know who would
ruined
invite
things.
me though? You know who would invite me?
Who's going to invite you?
Richard Clark,
No, we would not.
and not the dead one.
Is there a dead Richard Clark I don't know about? Oh.
Yeah, come
that
on,
guy.
man.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're hanging with
You're
Richard
really
Clark,
culturally
man.
aware of what's going on
Yeah,
around
how
us.
do you not know? I'm sure you recall.
Didn't you have a whole podcast or blog about that?
About Dick Clark?
No, about being culturally relevant. And here you are missing out on all that.
Yeah, we didn't write a lot of articles about Dick Clark.
Yeah, but you had to have grown up under the shadow of Dick Clark.
Yes, very much so. So for years, people call me Dick Clark, and I just thought they were being really insulting
Did
to
you
me.
think they were just making fun of your dad? Because he is your dad, right?
No.
He's not.
Wait. I have a dad named Richard Clark. I had a dad named Richard Clark.
So is it the dad? Is it the guy?
It's not the guy.
okay.
Is that not
No.
the guy? Not the dead guy?
No.
Okay.
But I finally figured out who they were talking about. And then I was like, well, that's
And was that
annoying.
last year, 2 years ago?
No. It was shortly before he died.
Shortly before it died, you're like, hey.
And then he died, and there was a wave of people calling me Dick Clark, and then it petered out after a while.
So in case people don't know you, because there's a chance some people don't know you.
I doubt it.
Even though
I doubt it.
I know, I mean,
He's kind of a big deal.
Kind of well known. Richard Clark works. Well, in the big picture, I'm going to let Jimmy give your actual.
You are
Do
nailing
you know
this.
it? I mean, because Richard here is a member of Redeemer.
Yeah, of course. So I know.
And
I know
so
what he
you
does.
know him really well.
I know what he does.
What does he do? Well, what would
Richard-
you say his title, his official title would be?
Okay, it's a little long. People get bored. But
No,
what
let
he
me hear
does?
it. Let me hear this
Richard
really long
works
title.
At Christianity Today.
He's the director.
Okay, so hang on.
Director.
But mostly what he does is he's he engineers the podcasts, and he is the host of The Calling.
It's a podcast, yeah.
Yeah, and he
Engineer is not
Engineer's
exactly
not
right.
the right
I'm
word.
just-
I'm going to quibble with the words a little
No,
bit. but
I agree with you, Richard.
he's the editor. He's the editor, right?
What?
I'm an editor. I do edit.
Yes,
Yeah.
he does the editing.
You don't remember what he
He
said,
works
huh?
at Christianity Today, though. Hey, I've hung out with Richard more than you have, so I think you know.
Oh yeah, that's
chill.
true.
Yeah,
And
okay.
you know how sad that is, though,
how's
because
that?
now I know him better than you. I know what he does.
You don't know it.
Yes, I do. He's
What
the
is it?
director of editorial development for CT Pastors and Preaching Today.
What's on that laptop
Simple.
that you're looking at?
See, even
What
he's
do you-
calling you out.
What are you talking about, Richard? No, I'm looking at what we're talking about today.
Oh, it's not written down. Oh, okay. It looked like you were.
It is.
No, I changed screens.
Oh, okay.
So
funny.
Richard is smart. He is funny and
smart.
And he's doing great work at Christianity Today. What was your involvement in Christ and pop culture?
I co-founded it
Yeah.
with Alan Noble. So yeah, I guess
That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I was editor-in-chief for years until I went to CT.
Yeah, very cool.
So that was a really good time.
And just tell us about your family briefly.
I have 2 kids. One is like 3 weeks old. One is almost 3.
Yep.
And I have a wife who is beautiful and smart and awesome, and her name
And allows you to be here right now.
And she let me come here at 11 o'clock on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Which is key dad time.
Oh, yes.
To come record this podcast. But she's awesome. She is the one who said, Joe,
Yeah.
I think you're an Enneagram 6.
No, that's not what she said. She said, Joe, I think you're a 6. That's what she said.
That's right.
And I was kind of flattered because, first of all, I never get right. and when I do, it's usually I'm not a 6. I'm usually lower down on a scale.
You're a 4.
And but I knew something was wrong when she said I was a 6 and Pastor Pat was a 9. I was like, hey, no way we're talking about the same scale I'm thinking of. No way.
Whoa, Pastor Pat is a good-looking dude in Thailand.
Yeah. What?
I don't know. I just threw it out there. I didn't know what to say.
That's
Just cultural differences.
Cultural differences,
People-
that's it.
people
'Cause
like
that
different
beard,
things.
His beard makes him attractive.
He does have that thin, wispy Asian
That's
style
it.
beard.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
I get that. All right, cool. So, so your wife ranked me, but it was on the Enneagram scale. Now, I'd never heard of Enneagram when this happened.
I can't believe you haven't heard. You
No?
hadn't heard of Enneagram in this stuff.
No, as we were hanging out there. So Pat and I were over there at the Clarks. You're visiting the baby and everything, and saying hey. And so this whole thing of Enneagram came up. And not only did I not know what Enneagram was, I didn't know that there was like a whole bunch of talk about Enneagram going on, books being written, like classes being offered, all kinds of stuff. And so I got schooled a little bit. I got a little like 2-minute crash course in Enneagram.
So why
from the
don't
Clarks.
Richard? Why don't you give us that 2-minute crash course? Like, give us an overview. What is Enneagram? And
Yeah.
Definitely the Reformed Baptists listening are going, what's an Enneagram?
Well, you should know. Listening, I'm a Reformed Baptist.
Yes, but I just mean
Maybe,
the,
yeah.
I mean the uptight, tucked in kind.
Well, that's who I'm talking to because
Okay.
that's my concern coming on this show is like some of your audience are not into the Enneagram. We know that.
sure.
We know that. And I am speaking also, I should just say as a disclaimer because that's really fun. I'm a generalist who is someone aware of the trend of the Enneagram. So I don't want to speak as it always gets weird when you talk about weird.
I know. So you're an expert in this.
I
Continue.
know
You're an
everything
expert
about
advocate.
There you go. Thank you.
Apologist.
After all that boring
PhD,
stuff, the
continue.
Enneagram is like basically a way. It's like if you think of like Strength Finders or Myers-Briggs, it's kind of like that, but it has a spiritual component.
Okay.
It's like INTJ. That's Myers-Briggs, right?
Yeah.
ENTJ. Whatever that stuff is.
Whatever that one is.
I
Then
hate
there's
that
like the
stuff.
color ones. Like you're either orange. I was always orange. I don't know what it means. Orange. There's green.
That's why you voted for Trump.
Orange, green, blue. Yeah.
I think the other thing I would say is what it does better than those other things is it acknowledges like the whole reality of what your particular personality type might be, which is to say it's a lot about the negative traits, right? Like it's a lot about growth too. So with Strength Finders and Myers-Briggs, a lot of times it's about leaning into your strengths, which I think can be more damaging sometimes than
Well, people
meant
love
to
their Myers-Briggs. They get it tattooed on them.
I would tell people all the time, I'm really intuitive, so like, please don't ask me to tell you arguments for things. Right? I just know, okay? Like that's been my argument for a long. That's the argument I'll make for something. But the Enneagram tells you like you tend to see the world in a certain way. This is what it's all about. All of the numbers from 1 to 9, they're not rankings, they're numbers, and they all have to do with how you see the world.
Yeah.
And what is nice is that I don't know how or why, but it seems to me like the Enneagram does the best job of making these connections of how you see the world and what it means for the way you react to things and people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as an example, I'm a 4. It means the way I see the world is I always see what's missing. I see the thing that is missing from a situation or from an accomplishment. It's hard for me to revel in things as if they were awesome. And then as a result, I'm like familiar with things like grief and sadness. And it ends up like one of the things I tend to do is like as a 4 is I tend to tell people sad stories out of nowhere. Like they're just like the weather, like in small talk.
But that's fine.
Yeah.
So, like, nothing wrong with that.
Well,
Except
yeah.
when you're at like a party playing board games, and then you talk about the one time you lost your finger.
Which literally, literally Sunday, we had an experience where there's a guy who was new to our like dinner gathering that we host. He asked like, "What's your high and low point for seminary?" He's just trying to make conversation. I was like, "Probably my divorce." For both of them, really. And he was like, you should have seen the look on his face. It was incredible. I constantly bring up my dad's death and my divorce in just regular conversation with people I barely know.
I think it's healthy. I'm not worried about it.
I think so too, but other people freak out.
I think it's because the 4s are the healthiest on the Enneagram scale. I think that's pretty.
I agree.
I think that's. I mean, I'm
And
just being
the 4,
objective.
like, well, how about this? Why don't we go through what they are? Because you're saying 4, and people might not know 4 is the
Why is
individualist.
the 4 the best one?
Yeah.
That's what they want to know right now.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and read the super succinct version of each.
All right, go, Joe.
And then I want you to help us kind of think through it and figure out which one Jimmy is and which one I am.
Oh, I
Okay.
already know what Joe is.
Okay, well let's just.
I have guesses for Joe, and I have one guess for you.
Oh, I already know what I am. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. I'm
So
interested.
on the Enneagram scale, a 1 is called the reformer. I already want to be this one.
Yeah, it's
Because
not
it's
you.
the reformer. Like
Yeah.
I want to be the reformer. Rational, idealistic, principled, purposeful, self-controlled, but perfectionistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like that's the guy I want to be when I look at this scale. I don't think that's me. That's
it's
the
not,
guy
yeah.
I want to be. But what's interesting about the Enneagram scale is that as you dig deeper into these, what I saw is that there are good versions of each one of
Yeah.
these and bad versions of each one of these, which is really
Yeah.
helpful.
This would be the guy who burns a heretic at the stake.
Okay, so thus the reformer.
Yeah, exactly. He would be the guy who's like, you are very wrong. We need to do something about that and solve it. The inner critic is like the big
Okay.
trait of a 1. They have a person constantly telling them what they're doing wrong or think or what is wrong about something, whatever. And then also like that often gets projected onto other people as a result. It's like an overflow of criticism they can't contain.
Cool. It was. Do we know like any classic reformers like that fall into that category?
Yeah, I was thinking of Calvin probably. I mean, all of these are guesses. Like one of
yeah.
the general rules is you're not supposed to type people, but you do it.
Oh,
But
totally.
in the
It's
book,
hard
doesn't-
not
doesn't,
to.
Doesn't it do it in the book? In the
Yes.
book, so
Yeah.
he says, "Hey, don't type people." But here you go. Here's
Here's some examples.
Here's some examples of, of some of these
Of
types.
people who never claim that number
Yeah.
for themselves.
So the book has it, but we're not going to go through that. That's fine.
It's kind of a way of saying, like, if you relate to these people, maybe it's you.
Yeah.
But I would say this is a big one for Reformed people. Like, I do think the Reformed movement has a lot of ones, and
especially
tends to
in
be,
the Cage stage.
Yes.
Well, in
section
case
of-
you guys were wondering, here are some examples of reformers. Okay.
Oh, here we
so now I can go with like Joan of Arc, Sir Thomas More,
Mm-hmm.
Gandhi, Pope John Paul II, Nelson Mandela, Margaret Thatcher. You guys get it.
Mm-hmm.
But Dr. Jack Kevorkian, how about that?
Huh.
And Martha Stewart.
Yeah, that
George
makes sense.
Harrison, Joan Baez, Celine Dion, Ralph Nader, Noam Chomsky, Jane Fonda, Meryl Streep, Harrison Ford, Helen Hunt.
See, this is getting
Donald
ridiculous.
Trump. Yep.
They're literally actors playing other people. There was no way we could know this.
Oh, look, SNL's The Church Lady. It literally says that right
The
here.
church lady.
Yep. And this
church
is
lady.
on the
That's a good one.
EnneagramInstitute.com.
I actually like the idea of using like
Characters.
parodic characters as examples, because that gives you a sense of like really the thrust of what we're talking
Yeah.
about.
Okay, so
Church lady is a great example.
Number 2.
Number 2 is the helper, caring, interpersonal, demonstrative, generous, people-pleasing, possessive. So this is the caring, interpersonal type who is generous, people-pleasing, possessive. What are we talking about there? Like what? Because like that doesn't sound too bad until people-pleasing can definitely be negative.
Yeah.
But it can also be good, and but possessive can be bad. So what are we talking about with the helper, do you think?
I think one of the things about it too is that they assume needs sometimes. They try and predict needs and answer them. I think I remember reading an example in one book, which I think The Road Back to You, which I'd highly recommend. The Road Back to You is a really good introduction to all of this. But there was an example of a person who kept giving their pastor cars. Like, gave their pastor a car after they didn't have one.
Are
And
they
it
looking
just
for a church? Are they want to
no, it's not that bad of a problem, but it does make things uncomfortable in certain situations. Sure. And there's that sort of like assumption of what is your need. Mm-hmm. And then the real bad flip side, because every one of these numbers has like a deadly sin. And the deadly sin for 2 is pride. And the reason is, it's like, I'm the only one doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm the only one who really loves people and helps people. And once that's not reciprocated, it becomes a real problem.
Yeah.
Because the big thing about Enneagram, the most helpful thing, I think, is that, a lot of people see it as something that puts you in a box and lets you stay there. It's really meant to let you see the box so you can then get out of it. Okay. And the box a 2 is in is seeing the world as, what can I do to help? Not everyone sees the world that way.
Right.
And that's the thing that, it's helpful. That's why it would be helpful to recognize you're a 2.
All right. So Jimmy, does he fall into the 1 or the 2 yet? Or do I? What do you think?
Oh, not Joe.
Maybe I could see maybe a 1 for you, but
no.
All right. Let's see. Number 3, the achiever. Oh, this is me. The achiever, right?
No.
I thought I was a 3 for a while.
Not so much. Success-oriented, which I'm not. Pragmatic, not. Adaptive, excelling, driven, image conscious. It does sound familiar, though. It doesn't sound like me, but it sounds familiar. I don't know. Success-oriented, pragmatic, adaptive.
All I know is, I do is win, 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 no matter what.
I think excel, image confidence. Your shoe budget alone tells me that you are image confident. I didn't tell them what your shoe budget is. I just tell them that you have a shoe budget. Your shoe budget is as big as Eric Mason's book budget. Let's just put it that way. Okay, so the achiever. This doesn't sound like what could possibly be wrong with an achiever?
I think it's less about succeeding and more about looking like you're succeeding. Mm-hmm. So some people have argued that Donald Trump is an achiever. Now that's that's a face value look at Donald Trump because he's obsessed with winning, quote unquote.
Yeah, right.
But
going to do a great job.
It really has less to do with that idea that their entire life, don't get me wrong, their entire life is devoted to succeeding. So that is very important to them, and they tend to succeed at what they do.
So success-oriented, though, doesn't mean successful. It could mean...
Not necessarily.
It could mean like, I'm success-driven, I'm motivated by it, or I want the appearance of success.
Mm-hmm. It also means they'll do a lot to succeed. Like when it comes to... I'm trying to remember their sin.
But if they're pragmatic and if they're adaptive, that can sometimes cause us to, or encourage us to kind of drop our morals, our convictions, and our standards in order to achieve, right? In order to succeed.
Or to even just cut corners, that sort of thing.
Right.
It's a lot less of it tends to be often, at its worst, it tends to be a less authentic success, right?
So more like just vanity.
It's tricky because all of these people have their roles.
Tricky.
So there's good and bad versions of the achiever.
I know some 3s, and they're great people. I
think we're sitting across from one.
So are you a 3? You're thinking you're a 3?
I'm a 3. I think I'm a 3.
Wing 4 probably.
That's
because
what I was thinking,
placing you as a 4.
Wait, hey, you just said wing 4. Nobody knows what that is.
So wings. Basically, you have a little thing you're a little bit of, but it has to be on either side of your number. So either you're a wing 2 or a wing 4.
So
you're a 3.
So you're an achiever, but with wings. I get it. Nice.
Oh yeah. Well, wait till we get to yours because I know what you are and what wing you are.
Yeah. Wait, my right wing? Is that what you're gonna say? No. Don't label me, bro. Okay, so number 4 is the individualist. This is a very sensitive person who sometimes is justifiably withdrawn, is appropriately expressive. Never overly dramatic, but dramatic. Some people might think they're self-absorbed, but they're not. And they've been said to be temperamental, but that's not true either. The individualist.
Is this what you think you are?
No, I don't know. Maybe.
This is one of the things I think
that's not
you
what
could
it
be.
says. It just says sensitive, withdrawn, expressive, dramatic, self-absorbed, and temperamental. Yes, that is what I think I am.
Okay, yeah. So Fours are me. Like, I'm a 4. I should
They're the
say
best.
that. Yeah, they're the best ones. The thing about being withdrawn is interesting because I don't think of myself as withdrawn. I'm pretty open and engaged with people. But when I realize that that's not embraced or welcome, I get very frustrated and will shut down pretty quickly.
No, I'm withdrawn. I'd rather be by myself all the time.
Huh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's like a very introverted 4.
You're focusing on that. I struggled between you for this one or another one. I'm not sure if you're that.
I think this is me. Expressive, dramatic, self-absorbed, temperamental. I think that's fair.
You come across like that to me in your sermons because you often reference like personal things out of nowhere that feel like they should have lead up. Like it will shock people. You'll just mention like a family member's death or
So he gives you no context.
Well, not no context, no warning, no like.
Thank you.
No contextual warning. Yes, yes.
There's no sense that this is weird to mention from.
Yeah, see,
there's
yeah, like my brother's overdose.
Right.
Yeah, that's all right. You just talk about it.
Right.
Why not?
Exactly. That's
We're adults. Come on.
Exactly.
Bunch of babies.
Yeah.
Those 1, 2s, and 3s.
And as opposed to a 3, it's like, what's the point of hiding this stuff? A 3 might go, what's that going to say about me? That I allowed that to happen in my life or whatever, you know?
Well, number 5 is the investigator. Intense, cerebral, perceptive, innovative, secretive, and isolated. The intense cerebral type. All right. So we're talking smart, focused. They have a good, if they're perceptive, they're good at interpreting people and things around them, right? They're creative problem solvers. What are we talking about here?
Yeah. I think they really value information more than anything. Like they're about seeing the world as it is. That's what they want to do. And they'll often like hesitate to make, they're not doers. They're like thinkers.
Yeah.
And so they'll, I don't know if they hoard information, but they definitely see it as high value. And so they might hoard it in certain circumstances if they feel in competition with another person. And then I think like they would hesitate to do things if they don't feel like they're going to accomplish them perfectly, because there's always some new knowledge they could get that's going to help them to do that even better.
Right. Okay, and then we have the loyalist, 6. This is what your wife is.
My wife is that, yeah.
Okay.
And I would say, so it seems like the 6 is, what I've heard is it's the most common number, like 50% of the population supposedly is a 6. And they also are the most complicated because there's like counterphobic and phobic 6s, which it looks drastically different depending on.
Now, she said that she thought I was a 6, and I don't think I am, which maybe that means I am one. I don't know. The loyalist is committed, security-oriented, engaging, responsible, anxious, and suspicious. Why is this the most common one?
I don't know. I don't know the answer. I think it's a cultural thing. I think it might have to do with the American dream. This idea of safety and stability and security being like the number one thing, the white picket fence, that sort of deal.
Anxiety. There's people. I'm definitely, that's the one thing that I am. I'm not suspicious. Fofo is suspicious. I am anxious though, and you're not anxious.
No.
So I don't feel like this fits me very well, but I can see parts of me in here.
Yeah.
And we can probably see parts of ourselves in all of these, right?
Definitely.
For sure, yeah.
And some of it accounts for that. Of course, here, if you're a 4, there's no accounting for it because there's stress numbers and health numbers for 4s. Those are 1 and 2, so that doesn't make sense. And then it can't be your wing, so you can't account for it that way. But definitely, like there's degrees to which we rub off on each other.
Yeah.
So I'm actually curious what you think your wife is.
Yeah, we talked about that, my wife and I. We'll get through it.
Because
I'll show you.
Definitely my wife is a 6 and it rubs off on me sometimes in good ways. Like usually if a number rubs off on you, it's a good thing. It's like a balance situation. But it's to me, the 6 is all about the higher authority and like trust. They're trying to figure out if they trust you or not. And if they don't trust you, then they are mad at you and trying to figure out how to tell you or deal with you.
The 2018 Doctrine and Devotion Conference is just around the corner, but there's still time to register.
It's going to be bigger than last year, and that's thanks to our 7 sponsors. We
Wait,
have
7?
7? Oh, yes, we big time now.
That's a holy number.
B&H Academic, who put out the Spurgeon Study Bible. There's Moody Publishers, who put out your 3 books. We got Logos Bible Software. We got Missionaware. We got Legacy Dads. It's all going to be
cool.
great.
Yeah, and we also have some amazing coffee that's roasted locally here by Fresh Ground Roast. And the coffee is brought to you by Crossway Publishers and Soldiers of Christ Prison Ministries, led by Scott Kalis out of Redeemer Fellowship. This is a ministry where Scott disciples men who are incarcerated, helping them to become better followers of Christ and better dads as they exit the prison system.
So you do not want to miss out on this. Go to doctrinedevotion.com and register now.
Mm-hmm. So we got The Enthusiast, which is 7.
Those are the fun ones.
The busy, fun-loving type, spontaneous, versatile, distractible, and scattered. I don't roll with these people. Not generally.
They it can take for a 4. It's weird. It's I have friends who are 7s, and it's a lot of like, okay, but no, can we talk for a minute?
Yeah, that's Rob Warford.
Yeah.
He's definitely one of these kind of guys.
Yeah.
Right? He is busy, fun-loving, spontaneous, versatile, distractible, and scattered. But he's also, I mean, what's not in here is that he's very, Rob Warford is one of our deacons. He's an elder candidate. He's also very compassionate and very invested in other people's lives. Very, very hands-on. So I don't mean that as a dig. When I say he's an enthusiast, I just see some of those qualities in him.
Yeah.
So this is so like just maybe describe this person in different words. What is it? What does an enthusiast look like?
Yeah,
what is one manifestation of an enthusiast?
I think one of the things is like it's a person who they want to make everyone have fun. They want to be the life of the party, right? So if you're at a party and it's awkward and weird, or like a guy just shared a story about his divorce, then and everyone's feeling sad, then a 7 is a good person to have to sort of relieve the pressure a little bit and to tell a fun story about like the time they tripped over a dog or something, you know. I think that and also I think 7s tend to be really like up for anything. Like they are really.
Dude, you want to go paintball?
Yeah.
Let's go paintball, man.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't. That's not me.
And if you ask them if they want to go paintball, they just say yes, as long as they thought like it would be a neat story or something.
That's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to do anything.
I'm sorry to hear that.
All right, so number 8 is the challenger. Powerful, dominating, self-confident, decisive, willful, and confrontational.
That's who I think Joe is.
Oh, stop.
No, I'm actually.
I
being
could
serious.
see that. Yeah, I could see that.
I have zero self-confidence.
I think Joe is an 8 with a 7 wing.
Huh.
Oh, dude, I'm hurt that you don't even know me.
No, I'm actually being
Okay,
serious.
so here's the thing. I don't feel like I'm dominating, but maybe that's just a blindness on my part. I'm definitely not self-confident. I have no self-confidence.
I think
I'm decisive.
I think you're more self-confident than you let on.
No, that would mean I'm hiding it. I'm not.
All right, I'm just saying. As I read that, I
zero
gravitate towards that. And what was the other one?
4.
The 4?
4, yes.
Yeah, 4
Those are
definitely
2
more.
I see.
And in terms of the 7,
The Maverick. Yeah, you're a Maverick. Independent.
busy,
I could definitely see a 7 wing. I
Thank
mean,
you.
the
Yeah.
wing is
fun-loving, spontaneous. Am I spontaneous?
You're spontaneous.
I'm spontaneously
It's so-
annoying.
yeah, no.
You're just like, hey, dude, let's go do this downtown Chicago. It's gonna be fun. I'm like, that's not what I'm doing.
Oh yeah.
No, but I'm talking about more like that, like explosive kind of ness. You have these.
I don't know.
You change rapidly.
Nah.
The thing I will say is when I met Joe, I remember going, I like this church because Joe doesn't care what a Southern Baptist is supposed to be. Like he is his own person, and in some ways, like actively so. Like you will go out of your way
Thank
to make
you.
sure your individual nature is clear to everyone else. That to me is 4. An 8 is something that's more like trying to whip everything into shape all the time, like trying to like.
Yeah, no, maybe you're right. He's too lazy for that.
Yeah, I feel like you would care
I'm not
about.
lazy. I'm chill.
You self-identify as a Southern Baptist, but I feel like that's more about your identity and your beliefs than it is about what you're taking part in.
Yeah.
An 8 would want to change the Southern Baptist Convention, right? Like they would want to whip that into shape, and they would want to like be a part of it and have meetings where they talk about not even just about the. I don't know how you do the church. I'm not in on all the secret meetings,
many secret
meetings.
secret ones.
Yeah, but in those meetings, it's like, are you more concerned about what the church is, or I don't know if this is totally true. I'm just like saying stuff now, but like what the church is or what the church is doing and what you guys are doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think
Eight's more of a doer.
When you say it like that, okay, I can understand that.
I've been in. To me, the 8 is most clearly like identified in meetings.
You're focusing on the confrontational aspect of it, right? Is that what you're talking about, like the change aspect?
Yeah, so 8s are confrontational.
The reforming aspect.
8s don't have a problem being confrontational. In fact, they have to reserve. They have to withhold.
Yeah, I don't mind being confrontational, but the rest of it I don't think fits.
Yeah.
All right, so the last one is the peacemaker. Easy breezy, easygoing, self-effacing type. They are receptive, they are reassuring, they are agreeable, and they tend to be complacent. Easygoing, self-effacing, receptive, reassuring, agreeable, and complacent. My wife is probably more 9 or more 6. That's I don't know how compatible those are, but that's what we were talking about. We went out for drinks and we were talking about this.
I think 9s go to 6 at stress or something, which would mean when she's stressed out, she would look like a 6.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yep.
So that makes sense.
I'm looking at the
Don't presume to speak about the character and the personality type of my wife, Jimmy.
Well, now that she's a 9, we got lots to say.
Jen and I was discussing this over lunch. Yeah.
What's your wife?
My wife, I think she is.
Oh, she's an 8. No, I don't know. Go ahead.
I think Michelle's a 2.
2, interesting.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I found really helpful about the Enneagram is in the context of marriage, it gives you, even if all of this stuff is just total bunk,
right,
if you can find one you identify with the most, it gives you handles and words with which to talk about extremely complicated and deep things.
Right.
So for my wife and I, we have words around why I'm self-obsessed and why she is constantly like second guessing things all the time and mad at me for not thinking of the worst possible scenario down the road that I couldn't possibly have thought of, right? But and we also, beyond like just understanding those things, it helps us to appreciate those things about one another and sort of help one another lean into those things.
Okay, here's the thing, because you guys know our theology. You know where we're coming from. All of our listeners, you guys know what we're about. Why are we talking about Enneagrams? We're talking about Enneagrams in part because it's important for you to understand who you are and to understand the people around you for very specific reasons. We also are talking to you about Enneagrams because sometimes we are too quick to dismiss things because we deem them unprofitable or unbiblical. But sometimes we're dismissing things because of how they are being treated by others who are embracing them. So here's what we're not saying. We're not saying that everybody needs to run out and I saw Homeboy, he's selling courses on like gospel courses on Enneagram that you can sign up for. All right, please don't buy that stuff. But what I am saying is you can benefit from any type of tool that's going to help you figure out something about how you operate, what your fears are, what your anxieties are, what your hopes and joys are, what your strengths are. These things can be helpful. And as I've been looking through the Enneagram, I do find it to be helpful. This is an opportunity for you, like Richard said, to get a handle, if you don't really understand yourself, to get a handle on where you're at, what your strengths and weaknesses are, or how you operate. And more than likely, even if you think, like I tend to think, that you know yourself, you probably don't know yourself as well as you could because you are a sinful and complex human being. So this is the kind of thing that you wouldn't want to do in isolation if you're going to do it. You'd want to do it with peers, with other people, right, to help you figure this out.
Yeah.
So maybe we can talk a little bit about the theology of maybe personality. Like why is this important? Why is it important to understand who we are and how we operate as a Christian? Why does that matter to us? Why should it matter to us?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really key here is sometimes people ask, like, what number is Jesus? and the assumption is maybe like a 1 or something. But he's actually right in the middle. I think a lot of our personality. So there is
How
an
can you
aspect
be in the middle of 1 to 9?
Well, if you look at the Enneagram, it's like a circle with points or whatever.
Yeah, it looks like a pentagram. I noticed.
Right, but
It looks
not.
a little evil.
Which is kind of what Kevin DeYoung's trying to say.
What is pen? But that's 10 points, right?
Pentagram is 6.
Really?
Not 5.
Wow. I'm
just
bad
messing
at
with you.
geometry, I guess. Geometry is the only math class I did good in. Anyway, I think like one of the things here we're talking about in terms of personality is the ways in which we lean in one direction or the other.
Yeah.
And to some degree, that's a result of the fall, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to say personalities are like always like sinful things.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's clearly like strengths and weaknesses with all of these things. I will say God has used many aspects of the fall to his to grow, to benefit his kingdom.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the things we have to do is we have to both ask ourselves 2 questions. How does God want to use me and my personality? That's a really helpful and encouraging and valuable and feel-good thing to ask, and everyone should do it. The second thing you have to ask is, how can I get carried away here?
That's good.
What are the ways in which I'm leaning too heavy?
Yeah.
And so as a 4, like the answer to the first question might be making people feel heard and valued and listened to, less alone, those sorts of things. Those are the things I'm really passionate about. I can recognize what people are. I can intuit things about people that other people can't, that sort of thing. On the other hand, I can be a little too wrapped up in myself. I can be too wrapped up in the bad things about life. I can have a hard time celebrating the good things that take place in my life and the blessings that I have. That's a real problem. So I think when it comes to personality is always just a mixture of strengths and weaknesses.
Sure.
And God is very clear that he wants us to sort of like, that every one of us, like there's Apollos, what's the verse? Apollos plants, and help me guys, you're the pastor.
No, you got this.
Oh my gosh, you guys know the verse. I know a lot about the Enneagram, no scripture. Just kidding. I went to seminary. God is very clear that we all have different roles to play.
Correct.
And so, and that's in the Bible. What's also in the Bible is we need to be sanctified. And sanctification means shaving off some of those edges as we go.
Well, speaking of sanctification, right? So, like we're understanding. The better we can understand ourselves, the better we are sort of positioned to address ourselves, right, Jimmy?
Oh, absolutely. I would say that understanding one's personality or our personalities can really help in repentance.
Yeah.
Where you're able to see those weak areas, those blind spots, as you would.
Yep.
And be able to address the heart issues that stem from them.
That's right. And one of the things that's really cool about Enneagrams is more about motives than anything. It is more about why are you doing that thing, not what's the thing. So not like you just made that whole party about you. Like stop doing that. Yeah. It's more about like, okay, you think that everyone is like, I don't know what the motive would be there. I'm not recalling well, but like there's a motive behind that. There's a reason that I did that, a reason that I think everyone sees the world the way that I do.
This is important though, because this is proper soul work. This is keeping the heart, understanding why I do what I do. It's getting the root sins beyond fruit sins. Yeah. And like this is real hard work. And listen, the Enneagram isn't scripture. It isn't the Holy Spirit. It isn't a means of grace. That doesn't mean that it can't be a helpful tool to begin to investigate yourself and your friends as you do this together. Maybe we could talk a little bit, and we'll wrap it up with this. Maybe we could talk a little bit about what can go wrong with people using this kind of a tool.
Yeah.
Because you can go in a bad way with it. And what's the safest way for people to begin to explore it? So on the bad end, let's just get this out of the way. How do people jack this up? I mean, Kevin DeYoung, the Right Reverend Kevin DeYoung, wrote an article. And of course, the way that he deals with it in his article, and we'll link it in the show notes, is he says, well, I can't really talk about the Enneagram because it's too big. So I'll talk about this one book's perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's his take on Enneagram,
which was the book that you referenced.
Right. The road back to you. That's right. Yeah.
So maybe talk to us about how this can go wrong. Are critiques like DeYoung, are those fair to hear?
I'm going to be, something weird happens on the internet where you read something, you react to it. And you react. You don't respond. You react.
I just go nuclear. That's what I do.
I read that article. I got pretty annoyed because it felt like I want to take this thing down. Mm-hmm. But I will say his criticisms are not criticisms. His critiques are fair. One of the things that I just feel like I need to say is the Enneagram movement is led by people who have a lot of. This is not an attack. It's just the reality. They have a lot of. What's the word I'm looking for? They are.
Cheese.
Very open to like post-evangelical movement. So one of the guys who wrote Back to You started his own podcast called Typology, which I listened to. It's great, but his first guest was Rob Bell. And you're like, what is happening here?
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm.
Those are the kinds of things where you're like, well, I don't, I'm not going to take that part of it. And I think this is just the reality is that applies to every book or trend that is out there, including anything
what's bad.
Yeah, including anything that like TGC or CT or Kevin DeYoung has put out.
Or Joe Thorne's booklets, yeah.
Well, especially Joe
That's
Thorne's
all
booklet.
good. What are you talking about?
No.
It's all good.
There's a lot of trash in that.
Oh
stuff.
my God.
I'm just kidding.
Exactly. Thank you, Richard. Richard, the truth seeker.
I'm going to invent a new category for Richard.
There's some good. A negative one. There's a lot of great and a lot of bad in everything we all do, and
So
we
what's
just
the
have to
danger?
realize
what's
that.
the fun? What is a like obvious or maybe what's a potential easy danger for us to get into if we start to go Enneagram or any of these personality kind of tests?
I think writing people off is a big problem. You are such a fill in the blank. Is a real problem.
So we pigeonhole them and we're done.
And we're done. Yeah.
So I find comfort in that. I could just say, "Oh, Joe, you're such an 8," and move on.
Of course you do. Yeah, it's always fun to put
8,
people in
4,
boxes
8,
and write them off.
Good in 8, yeah.
4.
8.
But we're called to love one another, and one of the ways we love one another is engaging them, not disengaging from them.
And this is one of the critiques, like Kevin and others have said, is like you're not a number. You're a
Right.
person. And
That's correct.
I don't know anybody who would say. I mean, obviously there are, but like people that are. Look, I don't have a dog in the hunt,
In the fight.
a dog in
Dog
the
in
fight.
this fight.
I don't have a fight in the
Wow,
war.
just stop.
You don't have skin. You don't have skin in the game.
Skin in the
I don't
game.
have
Skin in the
skin.
game. Tell
Yeah,
them that.
skin. I don't
What
have
is
the-
that from, Joe?
Football.
Continue. No.
Pigskin.
Keep going.
What would it be from if it's not
Shirts and skins.
football?
Basketball.
What other game has skin in it?
There's lots of skin games.
Oh, I bet. Yeah,
It's like a
if they
Mayan
had Marmion. I bet there
Mayan
was.
death fight. Wait, what did you say? I missed.
No, don't repeat. Don't let it
You
repeat.
better mark it.
Oh, Joe, we haven't had to do that in a while.
Oh, did you mark it?
Yes.
Marmion is an all-boys school. A lot of skin. He's gonna have to take that out.
Joe, we haven't had to do that in a long time.
Well, you had to make it into a thing. You could have just left it alone. You could have just let it fly.
No, but you don't have to be dumb.
All right.
Hold on. Give me a second. 42 minutes. I gotta take that out. That can't be it.
Let me know when you're ready.
All right, hold on. How do you want to?
I got it.
All right, hold on. Listen, 42 minutes.
So what we're saying though is that people are not numbers. We don't want to reduce people to something that isn't like that they are more than, and we want to treat people as individuals that we are called to know, love, listen to, respect. And maybe it's also when I think about how it can go wrong. It can go wrong when we really find our identity in that thing.
Yeah.
In your number, more than in Jesus Christ, more than in the fact that you are made in the image of God. These things may be very true of me, but my identity fundamentally is in the God who made me and the God who redeemed me, not in this. Right?
Definitely. Yeah. I think there's the risk of doing that to other people and then doing that ourselves.
Right.
The very there are people say actively that they're Enneagram numbers for different reasons, but one of those reasons can be like I'm a 4 and proud of it. That sort of feeling of like that's what makes me.
Maybe
what
you
I
should
am.
be a little embarrassed of your number, right?
Oh, you definitely
'cause
should.
There are problems, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely. The feeling that I had when I finally, like, because I grappled with my number for a while. I thought 3, then I thought 7, and then I finally landed on 4. When I landed on 4, it was a feeling of slight humiliation. It was a feeling of like, oh, okay, I guess that is.
Well, the self-absorbed temperamental thing doesn't feel good. That's for sure.
No.
and I've become more acutely aware of it over the last 2 years as I've
which helps
been aware
you
of this.
in addressing your sin, addressing your problem, learning to deny yourself and follow Christ.
But see, some people, even though they understand it, right? They see their shortcomings. They use it as an excuse to continue.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
That,
that's just how I am.
That's just how I am. This is me. You know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be my friend, you're going to have to know I'm a 4, and
deal with it.
And I'm an intense person. It just is what it is. Well, some people aren't as intense as you, and don't want to get on that weird, crazy roller coaster ride with you. That's just the reality. And it's not loving to take especially like a 9, and go, come with me on this nonsense trip where I rant at you for. I've had to learn just to deal with Jennifer as a 6 and go. It's helped me go like, oh, this is not valuable to her for me to come to her and go, I'm ideating some future idea of a total career shift, and she's seeing it as reality. And she's in that moment I'm talking about, she's thinking of all the worst case scenarios of the ways that could play out.
That security orientation is now being threatened.
Right.
It's like it's being challenged. All right, so if people are like, because like I think what Jimmy and I would want to say as host and Jimmy as the co-host, sidekick of
Batman
podcast.
to Robin. Yes.
Yeah, we all know who Batman and Robin.
Yeah, Richard, who's Batman?
Be honest.
Be honest.
Isn't it Christian Slater?
No. In this relationship right here,
I know I'm being purposefully dense in order to avoid the question.
No.
Come on, man.
Batman, Robin.
Yeah, come on. We just say it. We just
You
say
can
who
say
it
it.
is.
Come on now.
You know who it is.
You know who it is.
I think you guys know.
Yeah.
No.
We do know.
Come on now. Go ahead.
It's obviously the one that it is.
You hug that fence.
All right, so what we're saying is like something like the Enneagram. I like the Enneagram. I don't like people turning it into like the next gospel rubric. I don't like people turning it into something that is I don't know. I get nervous about people turning it into too much, but I like it. I think it's helpful. Richard, from your perspective, if somebody wants to get into this and just to kind of understand it and embrace it in a careful, thoughtful Christian way, what should they do? Where should they start?
If you want to start with articles, there's a few good ones at Christianity Today that you can read.
Oh, should we go?
If
to
I may,
Today?
do a search for like
Send us the links and we'll put them up.
The
on the
Enneagram
notes.
for Evangelicals, I think, is the name of the title at Christianity Today.
Who wrote that one?
John Stark.
Oh,
Yeah,
I like
John
it.
Stark used to be an editor at TGC. Good guy.
Smart guy.
He argued with Kevin DeYoung on Twitter after Kevin wrote that article. So
Well, he's smarter than Kevin, so that's a good fight.
yeah.
That's a good fight for him.
right, not a fair one, really. And I'm just kidding. I've never met Kevin DeYoung, so I feel a little
neither
guilty.
No, I saw him at an airport once. I thought he was dying.
He does, yeah.
He does
looks
look
sickly. He looks sickly.
No joke.
No.
Minneapolis. I was in Minneapolis. I was at the airport, and I was at that place where we had the burgers, right? And I was sitting there, and I saw him walking. And and first of all, he's really, really tall.
Right.
But I'm like,
No, he looks like Jerry Seinfeld with an autoimmune deficiency.
I wanted to go up there and be like, hey, man, can I pray for you? Like,
I'm not going to comment on that, but I remember seeing him preach at my old church, so I have seen him in person.
He can preach,
actually.
man.
He can preach.
Yeah,
It's a good sermon.
Yep, I like his preaching.
There's an article for pastors at CT Pastors called The Enneagram for Pastors.
Now, how much are these going to cost our listeners?
Our listeners.
Those are all free, I believe.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
believe
I
after you
there
sign
might be
up your email.
paywall.
After you give up your email and credit card
Right,
information.
CT Pastors, you'll need to give up your email. I'm not sure.
Send us links to the free or unlock us
Just
for our listeners.
subscribe to the
give our people
dang
some free
magazine.
stuff.
It's a good magazine, guys.
What is
What is it?
Christianity Today. Have you ever heard of
Never
it?
heard of this. What is this thing?
Oh wait, that's the one website that Stetzer's on. That Stetzer,
Oh, is he on that?
Yeah, they hawk all Stetzer
It's
stuff.
Ed Stetzer's website.
It's-
That's
Just
it.
tell
You're
us it's Ed's
just
website.
tell
Some people
Stetzer's
call
website.
it Stetzer and Friends.
It's called the
That's
Ed.
what- That's what Ed calls it.
It's like the electric company for evangelicals. All right. So we're going to have some links. You're going to send us links. We'll have them up there for people. Anything else?
The Road Back to You is a great primer on all of this.
And listen, here's the thing. We believe that our listeners
Yeah.
are not dummies.
Yeah.
We believe that they can read a book and agree and disagree with parts of it.
Yeah.
Like whether that's my books or anybody else's books, the Scripture is the only absolute truth, right? That we know that we can trust. Our problem is we have a hard time figuring parts of it out. So read these books, get that book, and just read it thoughtfully and biblically.
How can our listeners connect with you? They can.
Where you at? Where you at?
At the Richard Clark
Oh, the Richard
on
Clark.
Twitter.
Hang on a second.
Stop. No, but he's the Richard
I'm
Clark.
the one.
Your handle on Twitter and Instagram
Yeah.
is at the Richard Clark.
I'm not sure about Instagram. It might be Dead Yet Living on Instagram.
It is dead
Both
yet
are
living,
nice.
yeah.
Okay, so listen, I like that you don't have any numbers in there.
Yeah, numbers are for losers.
Oh, man. I agree.
Unless it's your Enneagram number. And then it's cool.
Well, Jimmy has like a lot of numbers and underscores. In
What do your numbers
I
represent?
don't want to talk about it.
Are they your birthday and
No.
stuff?
No. Just stop it.
Not your birth year?
Jay Fowler
None of that?
underscore 63.
No, there's no underscore.
It's something. It's so impossible.
There's no
It's
underscore.
so lame.
Stop it.
All right, so we'll get people follow
The
you.
Richard Clark, yep. And your podcast.
My podcast is called The Calling.
Yeah, I
Please
was on
check
it once.
out. You were on it once, yes.
Never been
Very
asked,
good episode.
Was never asked back.
Oh.
We don't ask people back.
Yeah, why
That's not a
not?
thing.
Or even a first time, but whatever.
we don't ask people
You
back.
should have both of us on.
Oh, God.
You know who I want to have back on?
Oh,
see,
see, I
he
like how we
sidestepped
just
that.
pivot
He
that.
said- he's like,
Wait,
oh.
Thanks for pivoting that one.
Russell Moore was my first guest,
Russell Moore's awesome.
and it was pre-election, and he talked so much about what a danger Donald Trump was to the world and everything, and now he can't talk about that anymore. But I would love to have him back on and go. So how did that
How did that all work out for you?
go? I just really want to have a real talk.
Here's the
with him.
thing.
Yeah,
You
thanks
do
for
that.
having us on, though. Yeah, continue.
Okay, you do that, and then we will meet up. We'll all meet up with Russ afterwards, and we'll get. Like,
No, Russ doesn't call in.
no, he'll come in.
Does he come in or does he call in? Do you
What
have
are we
people-
talking about?
On your
Russ Moore on your
podcast.
podcast.
No, I don't have any call. I'm like you guys.
Yeah.
I have. It's,
That's how you do
it's
it.
I'm like looking at all these other podcasts that have like Skype and stuff, and I'm
Just
like,
the
what are you
sound is-
doing?
Thank
No,
you.
man.
Thank you.
That's fine. Listen, like not everybody can do what we do. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yep.
You know, Richard. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So
Speaking of podcasts that have people on Skype, I also help produce Quick to Listen for Christianity Today,
oh yeah.
featuring Morgan Lee and Mark Galley. It is a great podcast. I highly recommend it. People
you go.
enjoy
Well,
it.
let us know when Russ is in, or let us know when your guests are coming in, so you know.
Yeah.
We can
hawk them as
piggyback
well.
on that.
Yeah. There's also an episode of The Calling that features these Enneagram people that wrote that book. that
Send me
wrote to
all
you.
these links. We're going to put all of these in the show notes. If they're not in the show notes, it's Richard's fault.
Should I just keep plugging stuff? You want me to plug some more things?
Now we're done.
Now you're done. How about you plug our stuff?
How about I just keep plugging stuff and you fade my voice into like the end of a long,
You know what? This
a
is
love
this
song?
is our podcast. Don't tell us what to do on our podcast.
It's hard for me not to produce. It's kind of my thing.
You're producer.
That's it. Yeah,
That's his
producer,
title.
not,
Produce,
not
editor,
engineer.
not engineer.
Goodness.
I'm more like big picture level producing, which means I'll just like pick people and say, go for it.
Yeah, that's the best way.
Well, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Doc and Devo, or on Facebook
No numbers.
Doctrine and Devotion.
That's
you
right.
can head to the website, doctrinedevotion.com. There you can contact us. You can sign up for our email blast or hit up the store and register for the 2018 Doctrine and
Now,
Devotion
well, this is going to come
Conference.
out before the
Yes,
conference?
yes.
What date is this releasing on?
All right, this
I don't know.
This
Are you guys
one,
going to have a Enneagram workshop?
March 26th.
Oh, it's not even April.
No, I know. That's what I'm trying
Well,
to
I
tell you.
asked you earlier if you will already have if it April.
And I
8th.
said no.
You said yes.
I said no.
listen to it.
Okay,
Listen
yeah.
to it.
Everyone
listen to it. Yeah, they all know. You screwed up.
Nope.
All right, go ahead.
And that's why he's an 8.
I'm a 4. What are you talking about? I'm a 4.
That's why he's
with a
an 8.
1 quadrant and a
one
9
quadrant.
wing.
Every Monday and Thursday. Blog posts on Wednesdays. Video content sporadically.
That's right.
Later.